Hi, it's KCCK's Culture Crawl. I'm Dennis Green, and it's a familiar face and voice on the Culture Crawl. It's Steve Shanley, but post-municipal band. Municipal band. So Muni Band ended up a couple of weeks ago, and just when you thought you'd have a nice rest and relaxing few weeks before classes start at Co, we put you to work in August for Jazz Under the Stars.
That's all right. Labor of love, love all of it.
First off, thanks for superintending a lot of Funk Night, Funk Stop, and Funk Daddies. You're on Jazz Under the Stars twice this year. We had a great time with the funk bands, and now we're turning the page a little bit to our final class reunion of the year, and that is arguably one of the finest big bands to grace our stages here in eastern Iowa, Al Naylor's I-380 Express.
Yeah, and very emotional for me and for a lot of the people in the group. Just the fact that band was around for so long. This was the group that provided the music for the Variety Club telethon that KCRG hosted for a number of years. And so we were doing everything in this band, from playing the little fanfares when they would announce the new fundraising totals, to the national guest artists who would come in to perform with us. We would back them up. We would play over the credits. We would get our own features every once in a while. And it was an exhausting weekend usually, but also really fun, great camaraderie. And so the opportunity to have a reason to bring the group back together for this is great. And then, of course, for me, with Al having been my junior high and high school jazz band teacher, it was really cool just to get to play in the group. And I think if you would have told college Steve back in the late 90s, I couldn't believe my good fortune getting to play in that group. And if you would have told me then, yeah, and maybe a couple decades from now, you'll be the one leading a group like this, I don't think I would have believed it. So just really cool for me personally to have this opportunity.
For those who don't remember or weren't around for the Variety Club telethon, it was a live local show, a whole weekend long. They brought in a lot of entertainers, people who'd worked at, not too many people that that were famous enough to be celebrities in their own right, although every now and again they'd bring in somebody, but a lot of Disney entertainers.
Yeah, probably the most famous was Eileen Graff from the Mr. Belvedere show, and she and her husband, who was a wonderful piano player and arranger and music director, they would come in. And the great thing about Eileen, I remember, and then also everybody who came in, was none of us were getting rich on that prospect. We were doing it because we believed in the cause and what the Variety Club was doing. And then, of course, the opportunity to get together and make some music.
And get a big band together, and get a big band together to play a lot of music, too. You had to read a lot of music to get through a 2.5-day telethon.
We did, and some of it, especially maybe one of the reasons I remember Eileen so well, her charts that her husband wrote were very difficult. And I think it was fun for them that first time they showed up in Iowa. Oh, this is actually a pretty good group. And then Ben realized, I could write whatever I want for this band to play. And he wrote some real creative, cool stuff for her to do. And so, yeah, some of it was very difficult, but very artistically rewarding as well.
I was a peripheral figure on this as I helped out with that telethon. Actually, I emceed the all-night portion of the telethon for a couple of years. And that meant that I had, when I got there, the band was there for an hour. Right. And then you guys went to bed. Yeah,
of course we went to sleep.
Everybody went to sleep, and then came back at 9 and 10 o'clock the next morning as I was finishing up. But I think that was the first time. It had to be the first time I met you. I think the first time I met Al or any of the guys in the band.
Yeah, it's really interesting. That particular event served as a meeting point for so many of us. My first time playing with so many of the musicians in that group was in that group, and you just watch the influence that the musicians in that group went to have in education and in the arts and performing over the next couple of decades. You kind of wonder what things would have looked like had that not existed, and had they not asked Al to form a big band to serve as the music for that.
I would argue that probably that and the salsa band are probably the two organizations that serve to really cement this portion of the community together.
For sure. And the salsa band that you're referring to, those musicians were the core of the 380 Express for a long time as well. So, yeah, a lot of crossover there.
The theme for KCCK's 50th is reunions, and I was looking at a reunion big band. Of course, I should also mention we've talked a lot about how great this band was, and there are probably people going, what about Rod Pearson's big band? Also excellent. Almost all of the same people.
All the same people, yes.
Talk just a little bit about that. You mentioned Al Naylor, who was your middle school and high school director. He's been a part of my life and KCCK's life for decades, yours as well. And talk just a little bit about the influence that he had on you as a young musician growing up.
I've told him many times that I would not be where I am today if it weren't for his influence. And I remember the thing that he was so good at as a teacher that I haven't been able to replicate, and I really haven't seen very many other people be able to replicate, is he just inspired such an excitement for the music. There were always these groups of students at Linn-Mar who he knew exactly what music to give them, to listen to check out, to get excited about, and then they would just take it and run with it. He knew I liked music theory, so he could get me excited about that. But not everyone was into it that way. The common thing, the ability he had, was to get everybody really excited about listening to it, so they would want to listen more. So they would want to all get in a car and go down to Iowa City to a concert at Hancher, or so they would want to find music and get together in someone's basement and jam on their own on the weekends, or go out and look for gigs. And he would help us figure out, here's some music that you would need to play. Here are the tunes you need to learn. Here's how to book a gig. Here are the things that need to happen for that. And like I said, I wish I were half as successful as he was in that regard, with just the sheer number of students that he influenced in that regard. So I was lucky in that sense, and he was willing to, when I thought I wanted to play the trombone, he helped me and encouraged me to play jazz trombone. And then when I wanted to give that up and focus more on piano, he was very supportive of that. When I wanted to do more writing, this was after I graduated, he was always willing to play pieces that I wrote or arranged. And he's the one who introduced me to Bob Washut, got me taking lessons with him when I was in high school, which led
you to go to UNI, and
very much changed the path for me. It is not even close to an understatement to say that I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if it weren't for Al.
And post-retirement, of course, he continued to be active in the music scene. He helped found KCCK's Jazz Band Camp, which is still going strong. Almost 20 years later, played in our schoolhouse jazz band for many years, recorded a couple of albums mainly with students, and then in 2019, one we called Friends, where we just gathered pretty much everybody who'd ever performed with Al in any way, and just got them all together in the studio and played a bunch of songs that ended up being a great release too.
Yeah, that was a good time. I remember those couple of days at Opus. The weather was not super cooperative.
Yeah, it was the middle of winter.
But we all made it work. And I remember how special that was for Al and for his wife, Rochelle, for all of us to be there and to be recording some of his favorites, and he sounded great.
We've talked around Al quite a bit, but his health is declining and he's not performing anymore, but he will be at the concert.
He will be at the concert. I'm sure that if there are former students, especially who are in the audience, who want to come up and say hi to him, I'm sure that would be pretty meaningful for him. My experience with him has been that maybe his memory for recent things hasn't been great, but the stuff from further in the past, he's a little better about remembering. So my guess is if you were in his band and say, I was in the year we played such and such chart, that he'll
be able to identify that.
Remember that
quickly.
And remember you. So go say hi to him.
So the band is comprised of a lot of veterans of the original I-380 Express, but nearly everybody in the band has some connection to Al Naylor, whether it was directly through I-380 or former student or some involvement.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised given the fact that the band really hasn't been in existence for 20 years, that we were able to get so many people who did play in that group at one point. And then, as you and I were discussing this winter, the possibility of putting the project together, we thought it would be pretty meaningful for those spots that we couldn't fill with the I-380 Express veterans to have some former students of Al. Yeah, with the exception of just a couple of people, everyone in that group either played in the 380 Express or was a student of Al's.
So run down the list.
You mentioned Rod Pearson. He was the lead alto player in that group, but I don't know, as far back as any of us can remember. So he's playing alto saxophone. Jen Teedy, who was Al's student at Linn-Mar, is also playing alto sax. Lynn and Peter Hart, who both played in the 380 Express for years, are filling out the tenors. Jeff Schaefer, who student taught with Al and is probably the reason that Jeff is in this area still today. He went to Linn-Mar to student teach with Al and then ended up staying here. He's playing Barry sax. Rich Med on trombone, played in the group for a number of years. Bob Manson also. Mike McMahon also. Joel Nagel is filling out on bass trombone. I'm still trying to figure out the connection between Al and Joel. I'm sure if I dig deep enough, there's like a Kevin Bacon sort of thing here where Joel has a connection.
Have performed together on many occasions.
Performed together for sure on many occasions, yes. Trumpet section, I'm very excited about this one. Scott Haggerty, who was a student of Al's at Linn-Mar and has been out of the state for a long time now, is returning to replace Randy Grabowski at the University of Northern Iowa as the trumpet professor.
Oh.
And so he's agreed to play in the big band. And I know that he and Al had reconnected in recent years. Scott did an album and was talking with Al about that. And I know Al was very proud of Scott. And then Andrew Piper, who was a private student of Al's as well.
And a band director now in Northern Iowa.
Yep. And then Steve King, who taught with Al and played in the 380 Express a number of times as well. And then Antonio Garza from Des Moines is filling out and helping us out with a bunch of those high notes. And then rhythm section, it's all I-380 Express veterans.
Yeah.
I'm playing piano. Steve Grismore is playing guitar. Steve Charlson is playing the bass. And Jim Dreyer's on the drum set.
And one thing that you mentioned when you were talking about the repertoire is we are fortunate that we have several big bands in the area. I'm thinking of the Iowa Jazz Composers Orchestra, the Iowa Women's Jazz Orchestra, who play either original or new repertoire. But this is the classic big band charts from people like Ad Jones and Buddy Rich, Count Basie, Duke Ellington. This is the classic stuff.
It is. And for the reasons you mentioned, that is, as I was trying to figure out what to program, I thought about a couple of things. What are some things that we played pretty regularly in the 380 band? And then also, what did he like to program? What did he like to play? So there are a number of those artists and charts in there as well. And then also, what is something that if we're going to get these musicians together to play live, and this doesn't happen very often, but it would be pretty cool if the students in this area could hear a live big band play Groovin' Hard by Buddy Rich, which you just don't get to hear very often.
And a lot of charts that they would be tackling
exactly
in school.
Yeah, and also I call a lot of that music gateway drug, for lack of a better term, that really you don't need to know a whole lot about jazz. And if you just hear Buddy Rich grooving hard like so many of us did in middle school or high school, this is awesome. And I totally love this.
And it has the same impact.
It still does.
Even though the song is 80 years old, the song has the same impact on you, whether it's 1992 or 2025.
Exactly. Yeah. So as you mentioned, I tried to hit one from each of the biggies: Buddy Rich, Count Basie, Duke Ellington, Thad Jones, Charles Mingus, and then also some compositions by Cannonball Adderley or Nat Adderley, Wes Montgomery. Al's favorite ballad was I Can't Get Started, so I thought it would be fun to play that one. We're doing a piece that Al wrote that we played on the telethon.
Groove in the First Degree.
Yep, I remember playing that on the telethon the last couple of years. And so I thought it would be appropriate to play that as well. And then also, I mentioned earlier that we played some little fanfares every time we had a new total come in. And when Al retired retired a few years ago, he donated his entire music library to Coe College. And so I had my student workers work on cataloging all of that. And I said, if anything looks kind of weird or it's missing some parts, put that in a pile. Otherwise, file everything. And one of them came up and they said, you don't want to keep these, do you? What are these? And I looked at that and I had this like flashback to 1996 or 97 of the Fanfares that Chris Mertz and Randy Schneeberger wrote. And I thought, no, we're definitely keeping these. I have no idea why, but we're keeping them. I just couldn't I couldn't throw them away or recycle them. And then here we go a few years later, there's this reunion band, and I think, all right, this is why I kept them. We're going to play some of the Fanfares.
Flashback Fanfares.
Yes.
It's the final Jazz Under the Stars, the reunion of Al Naylor's I-380 Express music director, Steve Shanley. Al's going to be there, so I hope you have a chance to say hi if you are a friend or former student from way back when. The Benesh Quartet will be our student ensemble that leads things off. And Go is a Prairie grad who has been a real big part of the Kirkwood music program for a couple of years while he's been here, and now has transferred to UNI, so this will be one of his last things before he heads north for good for a while. And our crowds have been huge. The weather's been perfect, and fingers crossed that we'll have that same experience this week. Steve, you have put in a lot of work and a lot of extra work this summer between the Muni Band and also organizing a couple of our concerts. So I just want to say thanks so very much for helping make these special.
I feel lucky that I even get to.
All right. We're looking forward to another great night. Thursday and Jazz Under the Stars in Noelridge Park. We start at 6:30. Steve, we'll see you then.
Yep, we'll see you then. Get there early for parking.